Welcome to the TerraLex Insights podcast, where our goal is to present multicultural perspectives by leading professionals. These perspectives on contemporary issues will help lawyers and business people work better together. I'm your host, Terry Pepper-Gavlik, TerraLex's Chief Business Officer, and I'm happy today to be talking with Jarred Leibner, who's the Senior Legal Counsel for Dufry Group. And I am going to turn it over to you for just a minute, Jarred, to please tell us a little bit about your origin story. What is Dufry Group and what do you do there?
Sure. Well, thanks for the introduction and thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it. I'm originally from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and came down to Florida to attend law school, did my JD MBA over here, and started off working as a lawyer for the law firm Gray Robinson. It's a regional firm here in Florida where worked in a variety of capacities, both on the litigation side and bankruptcy, and more so later a transition to the transactional side a little bit as well. You know, growing up in a family business environment and always having an interest in business, I knew that was sort of something that I'd be interested in pursuing. And so after 5 years or so working at Gray Robinson, I received the opportunity to join the Dufry Group, which is a travel retail company, the largest travel retail company based out of Switzerland, and operate duty-free and duty-paid stores in about 70 or 80 countries all over the world. And most likely, probably one of the reasons they were interested in me is that I, growing up in Montreal, speak fluent French. And so I was asked, and one of my starting roles was to help manage and oversee a lot of the legal aspects pertaining to our operations in France, but also elsewhere in Europe and Switzerland and Africa. That's sort of generally my role.
So, and it's interesting because I was thinking about it as you were saying it, that because I travel so much for my role, I'm probably a very large customer of your company. I spend a lot of time in all of my extra foreign currency as I walk through the duty-free and the duty-paid stores in various locations. So I'm familiar with you, and we're delighted to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. And just for any of the audience that isn't so familiar, I mean, some people think that the duty-paid travel retail industry is sort of one monolithic company that runs the whole industry. There are other competitors and other companies that do it. Dufry Group is the largest, and you also might be familiar in North America in particular with one of our subsidiaries, Hudson News, which is mostly on the duty paid side, but that's where you'll purchase your beverages and snacks as you attend before you take off on your flight. So a lot more people are familiar with Hudson, but we're in quite a few countries, and of course now with the pandemic, things are a little bit challenging for the entire industry, but it also is certainly doesn't lack in excitement.
Yeah, well, if we were video and not just audio on the podcast, I'd open my electronic checkbook register and you could see how many entries I have for Hudson News. So yes, big customer. Well, but you raise an interesting point, and that is, the challenges that the pandemic has caused. And so maybe let's talk a little bit about the impact of current events in your space, particularly on your company, your landlords, your suppliers. I think that might be interesting for people to hear.
Sure. So, well, I mean, really, it's impacted, every aspect of our business. In particular, one of the things that's very important as a company and for us in the legal department, in my role, I really sort of wear a variety of hats. Previously, the way our legal department was sort of structured was more so based on particular countries and geographies. And so in that capacity, worked in, I'd say break it down into, there was the business development aspect, which was working with airports and landlords and new tenders, whether it was in countries that we are currently operating in or wanted to move into a new country. The second area I would say is the day-to-day operational aspects, which deal with issues in the retail shops, but also at the global and regional levels, working with suppliers and with service providers and IT providers and all sorts of different vendors and suppliers of the products that we sell in the shops. And then sort of finally, another role was I was sort of the point person for all of our global IT and digital initiatives that we were launching company-wide, which also required a lot of coordination, with the individual countries. Now, pretty much each of those areas have really, been affected on the supplier side, with different brands that we work with, and also with the airports. And, I think the challenge is, it might have taken everyone a little bit of time to sort of come to grips with the reality and just how much that we're really going to have to adjust. But I think ultimately the ability to view these relationships as partnerships and long-term relationships that need to be mutually beneficial, and sort of have a give and take and a level of respect for our counterparts both ways, I think has been a really important aspect to really focus on for all parties in order to get out of the quicksand and find the best way to move forward. Because ultimately, becoming adverse with the suppliers or airports and landlords or service providers, makes it difficult to proceed going forward and get ready. And hopefully we'll be a better company when things are really opening up and back to business as normal, which we hope will be sooner than later.
Or whatever normal looks like at that point in time. So I'm curious about something. I had a similar conversation with someone else today, so it's fresh on my mind. But do you see changes in strategy, both maybe within your company and or within your supplier network, that you think are things that actually have morphed from temporary changes of how people operate to innovation that might carry forward even after the pandemic ends? An example might be the way a lot of restaurants have pivoted to more delivery or takeout, pickup kind of things. Is there some kind of parallel in your industry? And I know we didn't prepare for that question. So
no, actually, interestingly enough, even before the pandemic, one of the things and initiatives that our company has, have been working for quite some time is in the area and age of digital, digital retail and developing relationships and loyalty with customers. We have rolled out several different initiatives globally before the pandemic, which I think will become even more important as time goes on. But one of them was our Dufry Red, which was a loyalty program intended to build on relationships that we currently have with customers all over the world. And also what we call the Reserve and Collect platform, which is a very exciting initiative where basically travelers and customers have the ability to shop and browse for different products which we might carry, and essentially be able to, whether it's put in the order or reserve certain product ahead of time, they'll now be able to put in those orders online while they're at home and pick those up in the airport in connection with their travel. And depending on where the travel is, if it's international or not, obtain the benefits of being able to still shop duty-free because ultimately the purchase is finalized in the airport. And so I think that's a really interesting area that brings a lot of opportunity as well, especially since if you think about, the limited space that you have in airports, being able to shop and browse online ahead of time offers not only marketing opportunities, which ties into Dufry Red, but also allows for expanded assortments and additional product categories that you might not even carry in the shop initially, or which might be out of stock or elsewhere. And so by having the ability to plan and sort of understand the customer and their travels ahead of time, I think that allows for additional sales opportunities and cross-selling, and hopefully drive sales and a higher level of sales per square feet and per passenger, which ultimately are two important measurements, in the industry, important to both ourselves and also our landlords and the airports that we.
I mean, also there's maybe a safety factor that helps with too, because you then are spending less time, in a crowded place. What you buy it on ahead of time, you're just paying for it, and that's easier to control the access, the social distancing and access and all of that. So in the immediate aftermath or during the pandemic, that might be helpful.
No, absolutely. You raise a great point. Definitely, being able to reduce those lines or the traffic and congestion within the store is not only a benefit to the customer experience when they're in the airport and not having to wait in those lines, or having the benefit of browsing online like you might at an ordinary retail store, in downtown in your city, but also certainly would reduce lines and allow social distancing and whatever new protocols that airports might be incorporating now or decide to in the future. So there might be other, initiatives in the works, but definitely I think it helps on both fronts. I think it's a benefit to the customer, most importantly, which should always be at the forefront, I think, of any successful business strategy.
So what strikes me from our brief conversation so far is the next area I want to explore with you. And you definitely talk like the business. So in other words, you're not just presenting legal jargon. You definitely have a grasp on the company and the business issues. And I think that that's something that in-house lawyers have a unique opportunity to gain. Maybe talk a little bit about that and how you connect with people within your organization, and how I think, from what I understand, because you've had such a big remit in terms of functional areas, you probably are connecting people as well. Maybe talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Well, I think really to be an effective in-house counsel or advocate of any kind, and I know you mentioned earlier, working with external counsel, but I think understanding the business and understanding the priorities and goals of your the business, but also your internal clients, their particular circumstances and goals, I think is really important, because ultimately the advice that you give is meant to serve them and guide them to make decisions. And while, our legal department, we don't make the final commercial decisions or the deals that go through, I think an effective in-house lawyer is really able to add a lot of value to the in-house or to the business folks, whether they're high-level executives or local general managers or buyers. Everybody in each department sort of has their own goal. And actually, one of the unique aspects, which I really enjoy about my current role, is the fact that here in Miami are the legal headquarters for the entire company. And so we really have a unique opportunity to work with nearly all of the different departments throughout the organization, whether from the high level executives to, our treasury department to finance to, regional logistics. And so sometimes we have sometimes a viewpoint that and perspective that some of the departments may not necessarily have, particularly at the regional levels, where we can, provide additional insight and maybe provide best practices as to how something might have been handled. For example, maybe a certain problem with a supplier was dealt one way in Asia, and now we're having, a similar issue in Europe. And so we can sort of feed on some of those experiences and some of those relationships with other members that might be part of their team. But in such a large global company, everybody doesn't necessarily know everybody else or have that full network. And so I look at our legal department sort of as a stabilizing or force that can really, add value to the business folks and help them understand, different alternatives as to how to go about solving a problem, or to how to go about whether it's a legal issue or a negotiation, to the extent that we can add value and just support the business. Ultimately, we're all on the same team. And so that's, I think that's something that I really pride myself and emphasize in my practice.
I kind of want to bottle that answer because it serves our network as well. That's what our global network of law firms tries to do in supporting the in-house counsel community. You do have that unique perspective of having first worked in a private law firm and then gone into an in-house counsel position. And I know when you're inside, you have your methods and your ways of learning about the business and really understanding the, tolerance for risk and the business challenges and the strategy and all that. Do you have suggestions or advice for the outside counsel that is trying to gain that same kind of knowledge to be able to present commercial advice? And what are some things that you recommend that outside counsel do?
Sure. Well, I'd say one thing that I really value and that I really appreciate is when we work with external counsel, and we work with them all over the world in all kinds of different subject areas, but when they really look at us and try to take a position like they're a partner in the business, and really try to understand our business. And some of the most effective external counsel and outside lawyers that I work with are those that have a deep understanding of our priorities and how our business works. And so sometimes they may, proactively come to us with whether it's a new law or regulation that affects our business or industry. Especially during the pandemic, there's all kinds of new, laws and restrictions that governments might enact. And so being able to just understand our business and have us in mind, I think there's an initial consultation or relationship aspect that isn't necessarily where external counsel is going to be able to do a lot of billing or make a lot of dollars necessarily off. But that sort of intangible advice and understanding and relationship, I think, is really invaluable. And that really makes me as an in-house lawyer want to go to that person in order to work with them if I do have future work, regardless of the type, just knowing that that's the kind of relationship we have. And for example, let's say, at least how I like to handle legal issues is I try to be very proactive and anticipate things that might come up. And so sometimes even before a problem fully arises or blows up or becomes a major issue, I like to reach out to my external counsel and just gauge or get some initial sense if it involves their area of expertise and see, what their thoughts are. Let's say if it's a potential litigation or if it's a potential employment matter or maybe a tax issue. And sometimes it might not even really be a huge issue. But in order to sort of, before I go down a certain road, to help at least guide me as an in-house lawyer to guide our business and our decision makers, being able to sort of see where the road is going before you get to that turn, I think is very important. And so someone who has that kind of perspective as an outside lawyer is someone that I want to work with and that I want to give work to. And so with my internal business clients, I like to not only put people in touch or help connect people within the organization, but also I like to be a resource for any types of questions. And so by keeping those networks, whether it be, an employment lawyer in France, or whether it be an antitrust lawyer, or whether it be a tax person, whatever the issue is, just knowing that I have that network to draw on if something comes around, it just makes you feel more confident and more prepared for issues that arise and, to give the most effective and sound advice for the business.
So it sounds like, what you're looking for in a way is sort of a mutual investment, and you'll invest in the outside counsel and the outside counsel needs to invest in the firm. And I don't mean financially invest. I mean, spend the time to come up to speed and learn about, learn the things you need to learn or teach the things you need to teach. Are you seeing that is still going on right now in these sort of crazy times, or is it just all hands on deck? Let's put out the fires and we'll deal with the relationship aspects later.
No, you know what? I would say it probably enhanced that loyalty aspect. There are so many different matters and issues in all, in countries that we have and operations all over the world that, being able to go to an individual that's aware of it's so fast, I would say right now, that being able to ask a question of, the same firm or lawyer that's aware of, maybe a dispute we might be having with the landlord or a supplier or so forth, their knowledge as to those different aspects. A lot of the time it's sort of a holistic picture. And so to the extent that we can draw on their knowledge of the business in addition to their specific subject matter expertise, sometimes we have firms that, have lawyers that work in all sorts of areas and those bigger firms where the individual lawyers communicate between themselves and sort of develop a unified team to advise us, that's something that's tremendously valuable. And I've certainly noticed it a lot. And I'd say more and more so we're really we're really working with our same valuable firms, over and over for repeated matters. And, we really appreciate now, when business is tough, some of the, we don't always ask for free advice, but sometimes, just being able to give us advice and not charge for it, but general type of advice and just guidance or overall counseling. Of course, when we have more substantive matters, we want to treat our counsels fairly, and we treat them as partners as well. But to the extent that they understand that, we're going through a difficult time, I certainly appreciate it. And, I want to reward those firms that, are sort of stepping up for us during this time. I mean, I know I had a law firm I previously didn't do too much work in this country, but I had some matters in Egypt. And I was just speaking with the counsel the other day or the other week, asking for some advice. And they've really gone above and beyond to give me some insight into, some of the laws and certain aspects. And so, I let them know, we really appreciate that, and certainly will consider it going forward. So I appreciate it. And I think that, if they treat it as a true partnership, I think naturally a lot of those lawyers sort of have that mentality. And of course, just the relationship, the individual relationship between attorneys and people is also one that is as well. I was listening to one of your other podcasts the other day, and I think one of the speakers was talking about how that really developed a connection with some of his clients and customers, and made them come back to him. And so I think certainly being a person that likes people and wants to get to know people, whether you do it naturally or not, for me, it's something I also enjoy. People getting to know people separate and apart from the work, I think is something that builds the trust with your in-house lawyers, with your business people, with really just anyone that you work with in a professional setting. So I think those are all important sort of intangible things that maybe an outside lawyer can do to build the trust and relationship professionally with a company.
It's been interesting for me to watch, not just in our network, but I'm talking about industry-wide, how the extroverts are finding really unique ways to connect, even though it's remote, and the introverts are sort of really struggling with it. And there's lots of, I see in listservs and various things I'm on, does anyone know how to do business development when you can only use Zoom and things like that, or how to develop relationships with your clients, but I think the basics are the basics, and it's adding value and investing in the relationship, and you can do that whether you're remote or standing in the same room or sitting at a bar.
No, I mean that's true, and I guess I really haven't had to deal with it too much in an in-house role. The aspect of driving business and bringing business to the firm isn't sort of something we have plenty of problems without me needing to go out and solicit them. But I think there is something to be said about the in-person connection that would be difficult and probably harder to sort of develop during these times. But to the extent you already have a pre-existing relationship, or you are involved in anything, I think any communication, whether it's over Zoom or the phone, I think during these times, since there is less communication in a sense, I think making the most of those communications with the clients is very important during these times. Just like it is for me with my business people.
Yeah.
I think, I guess the same thing could be said with external counsel. And to the extent I get a call from an external lawyer just to give me a call and let me know about, hey, there's an issue I was thinking about, or I think maybe you want to tackle it like that, I'll always be appreciative of an email or someone reaching out with thoughts or ideas, and just to know that they even have us, in their mind or treat us as that kind of partner, I think is something that I would remember and appreciate.
Excellent. So last question for you, unless you have something else you want to share with our listeners, but are you feeling optimistic that what if a vaccine is developed and we're all back to traveling soon? I mean, do you think that the recovery will be pretty quick because of all the pent up demand to go places and for your industry in particular, or do you think that there's going to be systemic long-lasting changes as a result of what we've been through?
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to really predict, exactly the speed of the recovery for our business. I think this pandemic and the situation has already gone on and been going on quite a bit longer than initially anticipated. And so it's certainly been challenging. And I think some of the challenges and the length of time, will have an effect regardless of when ultimately a vaccine comes out. My personal view, and nothing with to do with the company, is I can see and feel that people are really have this desire to get out and travel and go places and sort of feel cooped up and want to get back to traveling. So
Present company included.
No, I think everybody. I think once they're used to it, a lot of people love to travel, whether it's for leisure. Now, in terms of business travel, I don't know to the extent with which that, I think the fact that people have gotten accustomed to a lot of the digital communications and Zoom or Microsoft Teams meetings and so forth. I don't know to what extent that changes business travel habits, going forward. I think on the personal level, at least for me, we got sort of locked out of our vacation we were going to take right around March time. And so, I know my family and I were excited to travel and can't wait to be able to do that. So I happen to think once things do open up, people are really going to be eager to do that. Particularly one of the businesses I actually oversee is our retail cruise business. And so we operate retail shops on board roughly 40 or so, or many different cruise lines. And so that business has been a particular challenge, and even more so than the airlines, just because they haven't even been cruising and so forth. But I think even there are people that just really miss it and can't wait to get back. And so hopefully we'll bounce back. I'm optimistic that the industry will bounce back and will bounce back strong, to previous levels. And hopefully some of the improvements that we've been able to make as a company and advancements on the digital side and, cutting of overhead and those types of things will make us a stronger company and become more profitable and ready to succeed once things really do bounce back. So maybe it'll be an opportunity and a benefit in the long term. Who knows? But I certainly think travel will be back, if not better than ever, then relatively soon.
I, for one, hope you're right. I can't wait to be in some far off city spending my money on perfume in one of your stores, or a candy or liquor or something, or Hudson News buying chips and whatever I possibly can. I can't wait to travel again.
No, me too. And actually, one area though that I would probably point out is I do think, at least for the near future, you'll probably see more of a quick bounce back in terms of domestic travel. Mm-hmm. Whereas international travel, different countries are experiencing different issues at sort of different times. And so there are still, a number of restrictions. And so, for our business, particularly on the duty-free side, that has a significant impact, or an impact where, we, depend on international traveling and those types of things. But I think it'll still be an opportunity to improve ourselves and ultimately drive increased spend per passenger and improve our concepts and company. And so the travel retail industry will be back. I
can't wait. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Jarred Leibner, and we appreciate you taking the time with us today and listening to the TerraLex Insights podcast. Thank you, Jarred.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You too.